Hi, I'm Gavin Syme.
And I'm Vivian Corrigan, and welcome to Perthshire Online TV. So Gavin, what's some of the news around Perthshire this week?
Well, I start off with some sad news. Very sad to hear last week of the death of Martin James, local actor Martin James. On a positive note, I'm sure we'll all remember Martin for his great acting ability and also really for being such a great gent and character around the town over the years. On a different note, great to see some new businesses starting up in Perth, and delighted to hear that Tracy Miller and Sarah McDonald are opening a new boutique in February in Perth called Mac and Posh. It's celebrity-inspired fashion at an affordable price point in a boutique environment, and they've got some exclusive labels to Perth. So if you're looking for the look of Amy Childs, or you want to have the Towie Girls look, or Pixie Lott, then they have labels such as Love, Maggie and Me, Lipsy and Sugar Hill Boutique. So all the best to Tracy and Sarah when they open Mac and Posh, and great name, ladies, great name.
It's really good, isn't it? I hope the budget to the show maybe gives me a new frock, do you think?
Well, you know, we've splashed out in the past week, Vivian. You know, I've got a nice new tie to the grand collection. Congratulations and great efforts to the Friends of Burke's Cinema in Aberfeldy. They've a 1.8 million target to reach by the end of January, and they're 80% there now. So great work, but still got a gap to fill till the end of the month. They've just received a £100,000 gift from the Scottish Hydro Griffin Wind Farm Community Fund. That was quite a mouthful. The Friends of the Burke Cinema would be delighted to hear from you in any donation or sponsorship that you can provide, and you can reach them at www.burkescinemafriends.org.uk. But you've been quite a busy bee this week, haven't you, Vivian?
I have indeed. Well, I know your New Year's resolution is to lose a few pounds, Gavin. Quite a few pounds, and I'm sure some of our viewers will identify with that. So to help you, Gavin, I have called in the experts, and the first expert I had a chat with was Stephen Clarke from Stephen Clarke Fitness, a master trainer. You're in very good hands there.
Fantastic.
And he came in to talk to us about healthy eating, so you're going to enjoy listening to his interview.
Fantastic. And we're joined also by Alison McKean from local legal firm McCash and Hunter.
Very good. Lovely. And the other expert I had in to have a wee chat with to help you achieve your goal is psychiatrist and medical director of the Priory Hospital, Alex Yellowlees. And he came in to talk to us about not just setting goals, but how to achieve them. So I am doing my best to help you, Gavin.
That's fantastic, and thank you very much. I'll need to make lots of effort.
You will.
I've got my work cut out over the next few months, haven't I?
We're going to see a lot less of you, Gavin, over the next few months.
We're also into our Facebook competition, so please contact us. You know, we have our competition which runs till the middle of January, so you can reach us on our Facebook page, and the details will be coming up on the screen shortly. But please remember, we do want to hear from you. We want to hear your local news, any events that you've got happening. So please do contact us via Twitter, via Facebook, or email us at info@PerthshireOnline.co.uk. We really want to hear from you. This is a Perthshire TV channel, and we want to share your news.
Welcome to the show. We're going to be talking about setting goals in life, and I have a fantastic guest with me this week. Welcome to Dr. Alex Yellowlees, psychiatrist and medical director of the Priory in Glasgow. So it's lovely to have you with us today, Alex. So setting goals in life and achieving goals in life, it's not always the same thing. Why bother?
Well, I think because if we don't have goals that we are clear about and have properly formulated in our minds, then we can end up just drifting through life. Because when you stop and think about it, all of us, somewhere in the back of our minds, have dreams, ambitions, goals that we would like to achieve. So actually recognising them, bringing them into the forefront of our minds, making it clear and defining them and working out how we're going to move forward can undoubtedly improve our sense of well-being and help us achieve a higher level of personal development and happiness in life.
Okay, so how do we successfully achieve them then?
Well, I think the great thing is that the achievement of our goals is absolutely within our grasp.
Right.
And we'll use that word grasp as a key to how we're going to do it.
Okay.
Where G, as in our grasp, would stand for our thumb, if you like,
yes.
and it would be the goals themselves.
Right.
And the G would really be beginning to clearly define what it is we actually want to achieve. Because, as I said, most of us have vague notions of what we would like. It's too vague to say, well, I'd like to be a bit happier or I'd like to lose a bit of weight.
Yes.
We need to be much more specific about our goals and to be quite clear in our own minds what we're trying to achieve and whether it's realistic.
Right.
So we've got to be specific, it's got to be achievable. We've got to aim high,
Yeah.
but not unrealistically
Yes.
so.
Yes, yes. Sometimes that is the problem, isn't it? We can aim too
Yeah.
high and then we never ever achieve them.
Well, I think that's absolutely true. We can be so unrealistic and grandiose in our goals and ambitions that we then are doomed to failure,
Yeah.
and that just knocks our self-confidence even more.
Right, so that's G. What about R?
Well, R is stands for responsibility,
Right.
and it's about taking personal responsibility for our own goals and the achievement of them, because often people adopt other folks' goals
Yes.
or a partner's goals.
Yes.
It may be that one's partner says, I'd like you to lose a bit of weight
Yes,
or to do
that's
this
true.
or to do that, and the person goes along with it without fully embracing that goal.
Yeah.
So I think if we're going to have success in achieving our goals, they've got to be ours.
You've
We've
got to
take,
want to.
Exactly. We've
Yeah.
got to take ownership of our own
Yes.
goals and really feel that this is for me, this is
That's
what I
right.
want to do.
Whether it's, and especially if it's like losing weight or smoking, you can't do it for someone else. You've got to do it for yourself.
Absolutely. And many people get into doing these kinds of things, going along with the pressure of others around them, that others are exerting on them, when they don't truly in their heart actually want to achieve that goal.
Yes.
So we've got to be clear and honest with ourselves and others about what we're going after here.
Right. A, what's that going to be?
Well, it's just my little play on words. A stands for a cunning plan.
Right, very
as in
baldric.
Very baldric, yes. Or I love it when a plan comes together,
Yes.
one or the other. Take your pick. But it's about having a very clear idea that one sits down and draws out, if you like, a broad plan for how I'm going to achieve this
Right.
goal. So, supposing it is I'd like to start my own business this year. It's a great idea, it's a great notion, but we've got to very clearly have a specific plan about how we're going about starting that off.
Yeah.
Or it might be, this year I'd like to start learning to play the guitar. Many people have that kind of notion. I'd love to play the guitar. People say, oh, I'd really like to be able to do that. But they never sit down and actually plan how they're going to go about achieving it. Are they going to source a teacher? Are they going to ask around other people who play the guitar and find out who is a good teacher?
Yeah.
Where are the best sources of that? Do they even go out and buy themselves a guitar in the
Yeah.
first place? So things have got to be quite specific, and the cunning plan has got to be laid out in realistic steps. And according to a time scale that's going to be appropriate and doable, essentially. Because often people set timescales that are either so unrealistic, they're either so short they're doomed to failure, or they're too indefinite that they're just going to drift.
Yes.
So there's got to be that
It's
timescale
quite
to
good.
it.
Say it was weight loss. Often people set it for maybe a wedding or a holiday. That's quite good as well, isn't it? You know, they've got a goal to aim for, and it's a realistic goal, isn't it?
It is. It can be. If it depends on what the date for the wedding is or the
Yes.
holiday, of course. Because some people just go on crash diets to fit into their wedding
Right,
dress,
that's
for
true.
example,
That's
and
true.
sometimes that can precipitate illness. So it's got to be something that is safe and healthy in its realistic potential, I think.
Right, and maybe writing a plan down, is that quite good?
Writing, it's great. Putting stuff down
I
on
like to
paper
do
is
that.
just fantastic.
Yes.
When it's in black and white, you can see things so much
Yes,
more
I
clearly.
find it easier. I find making lists is good.
Oh, absolutely. I make lists
So
every
do I.
day, lists day by day.
Yeah.
I think once you get it down on paper, you're taking it out of your own mind
Yes.
and its vagueness and making it concrete. It's in front of you, you can see it, and it's much more easy to relate to your own plan that way, I think.
Yeah, what about S then?
S is for C, S-E-E. It's about using the power and the potential of our mind to visualise the end result of our goal.
Right.
Because our minds are amazing machines. They're magical things in that what we see in our mind's eye, we tend to be more likely to create. And if that's a negative outcome, then we're more likely to create a negative outcome. If it's a positive outcome, then, and we're visualising that, we're much more likely to bring that about. Because the way it tends to work is that what we visualise and think about, we create. That what we bring our attention to and focus our attention on, we actually create.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't get that far. They just have a vague idea of I'd like to lose weight without actually visualising the end result.
Yeah, so if you're trying to give up smoking, see yourself as a non-smoker and visualise if you're maybe in a tricky situation. You know, if you're at the pub and normally you're going to have a drink a smoke outside, what you would do in that circumstance.
Absolutely. And I think it's about being aware along with seeing what one's thoughts are at the same time that are accompanying the visualisation.
Yeah.
And if they're negative, saying, oh, this is never going to work and I'm not going to do it, and to become aware of those thoughts and to begin to replace them with more positive ones. So that the visualisation of the outcome of playing a guitar, for example, is that you can see yourself doing it, you can even hear yourself doing it.
You can tell you're musical, you keep bringing up the guitar.
Which is one of those things that you often speak to people at parties and evenings and say, oh, I always wanted to learn to play the guitar.
Yes.
And they all do, but they never actually go about
well, do you know, I tried to learn to play the drums. And I bought the drum kit. Yes, you have heard me. I never achieved it because I bought the drum kit, I did do the lessons, but I never saw myself as a drummer. I think that's when I fell down. That could be.
Well, you're using the right language, so you didn't see yourself as a drummer, either in concept or visually.
So P, what's P?
P is for progress. There's no point in having a plan that's rigid and inflexible. Every plan needs to be reviewed and modified.
Right.
And sometimes even to the extent that the original goal itself is changed. For example, sometimes people say, well, I'd really like to lose weight, for example. And yet their true goal is actually one that they're not yet conscious of, which may be, I'd actually just like to feel a lot happier about myself and feel a lot more confident. And as they go through following the original plan, which is to lose weight, they become aware that that's only a stage in the process of a deeper goal that they would really like to realise, namely to be happier, more confident within themselves. And so to readjust the direction of the plan, if you like, to be focusing on building self-confidence and self-worth, is more likely to be helpful, but also to bring about the original goal itself of losing weight.
Very good. I wish I'd spoken to you before I gave up playing the drums. I might have actually got there.
I heard you were pretty good, actually.
That was terrible. Well, thank you so much for joining us. That was really, really informative.
Well, it's a pleasure.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and remember, success is within our grasp.
Oh, I was dead excited when I got this next interview. I thought, oh, Whisky, Wild Wild Women, that's me, I'll do that one. Well, the Whisky's in it, but there's no Wild Wild Women. It wasn't Gloria, it was Galore. And I've got the composer and lyricist, I almost said that, Iain Hammond-Brown here with me in the studio. And we're going to talk about the fantastic musical Whisky Galore. Welcome to the show, Chuck.
Thank you, Alan.
Now listen, Whisky Galore has been a huge success at Collier Theatre. We'll come on to that more, but where did it actually originate from?
Well, it originated from the festival, Edinburgh Festival Fringe in 2006, was where we first staged the show as a shortened version, and then from there we managed to take it on to Pitlochry Festival Theatre, which allowed us to develop it into a full production.
Okay, so the one at Edinburgh, was that what you've got now? So was it just a kind of a
No, it was
version?
a much shorter version of the show, It was only an hour and 10 minutes, the one in Edinburgh, whereas the version now is about 2 hours.
So how did the inspiration come about for you to actually do Whisky Galore? What's the story of that?
Well, it really started, it was about 2005. My friend Suzanne Loftus, who runs a Cutting Edge Theatre Company in Edinburgh, we were looking at new musicals to write, and she was going down to meet with Cameron McIntosh in London to get some advice on producing musicals in Scotland. I know, sorry. Just had to drop that in there. So anyway, she
didn't drop in, it made a clank when it landed, that one.
She met up with him and he suggested that we maybe have a look at Compton Mackenzie's work as a possible source of material for a new musical. So when she came back up from London again, we'd met up and gone to have a look in a bookshop to see what books were around of Compton Mackenzie, and we came across Whisky Galore, which is obviously a very well known and successful novel. And it was one of my favourite stories anyway. So we decided to approach the Compton Mackenzie's estate to see if the rights were available to turn it into a musical, and luckily nobody else had done that before, so we were lucky enough to get the rights.
Well, it's a bit of an obvious choice as well, if you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great comedy, it's a great story, and it's a really well-loved story. So
so did you work with anybody to get that going? Who did you work with to actually get the whole thing going?
Well, it was Suzanne Loftus at Cutting Edge Theatre Company who originally helped us produce the show in the Fringe, and we brought in a writer, Shona McKean, who worked with myself on adapting the story and then added the music and lyrics for it. So the Fringe production was very successful in 2006. It sold out completely, and from that I felt I wanted to take the show on further.
So when that finished, was it a bit of an anticlimax and thought, where do we go now?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
So how did you move on to the Pitlochry Theatre?
Well, I managed to get in contact with a director called Ken Alexander, who's a Perth-based director.
I've had a coffee with him.
Have you? Right,
oh, yes, I'm name dropping now.
Okay. He's a nice guy, Ken, and he helped us develop the show, and then I approached Pitlochry Festival Theatre, and at that time John Durnan, the artistic director there, was actually looking at Compton Mackenzie's work, and when I approached him about Whisky Galore, he seemed quite interested in it, so we set up a meeting and pitched the show to him, and luckily he was interested enough to commission myself and Shona to write it for a full 2-hour production, which was great for their 2009 season.
And I believe that was like one of their best selling...
Yeah, at the time it was their best selling show ever,
which was fantastic. And it's been, because it was one of the best selling musicals, it's been reprised for their 60th birthday.
That's correct, yeah. They brought it back in 2011 there, just in their first autumn season to celebrate their 60th anniversary.
And then that was another huge success.
It was very successful that time as well, yeah.
Okay, well, we'll talk a little bit more about where that's going to after that, but
sure.
I'm a bit interested in kind of when you're actually composing a show. I mean, obviously, Whisky Galore, very Scottish.
Yeah.
So was your inspiration Scottish traditional music for this?
Yeah, well, partly, I mean, when we were researching the show, I actually went up to Barra, where the original story of Whisky Galore is based, and where the true story happened before Compton Mackenzie turned it into a novel. And I researched the music there, Scottish traditional music, things like walking songs, but also I wanted to bring in sort of more modern a musical theatre feel to it, which really came from my side of things. So the musical language of the show is covering Scottish traditional music, also the music of the 1940s, where the musical's actually set, the time period it's set in 1942, as well as more sort of contemporary musical theatre.
And how do you feel as a lyricist and composer when you hand that over to a director and they're actually interpreting your work? Is that a strange experience?
I mean, it was a strange experience for us. It was a good experience as well, in the fact that all the things we'd written down on the page suddenly appeared on stage, which was great for us to see. But we'd been working with Ken and John Beals, the musical director, and Rita Henderson, the choreographer, in developing the show anyway, so we did trust them. So we were quite happy to hand it over to them and let them get on with producing the actual show, which was a good bit. And
is it a great feeling once you've got that opening night done and it's a full production, you've had all that success?
Oh yeah, it was a great experience.
You had a standing ovation on the first night?
There was a standing ovation on the first night, yeah.
I'll tell you a little story. I've got a friend of mine who goes to the theatre and musicals quite often, but she absolutely loves a Whisky Galore.
All right,
she loves the film that much, she didn't want to go and see the musical because she thought she was going to be disappointed.
Yeah, we'd heard that a lot, yeah.
But she actually went.
Yeah.
And she loves them both now.
Right,
she actually loved it.
Yeah.
So now you've got a success. It's about time.
It's taken me long enough.
You've got a success under your belt. Do you see an afterlife with the musical now it's left Pitlochry?
Well, I hope so. I mean, I think it's definitely got legs for potentially a tour in Scotland. Would be good. And we have had we have had some interest from producers who are looking at it at the moment, and we would also potentially hope that maybe tour places like Canada or America as well. So,
because I've not actually seen it myself, but the reports I've had back, it's a really great evening.
Yeah, it's a fun show.
You come out on a high, as opposed to feeling a bit depressed. So it's a perfect one. It's also a perfect one to tour Scotland because got obviously all the Scottish connections,
Uh-huh.
etc.,
Yeah.
etc., which is a huge success. Now, as I said, I have not actually seen it.
Right.
But if anybody else is out there listening or watching, then if you're a producer or anything like that, don't forget you can get in touch with us and we'll put you in touch with Iain. It's got legs, this one. It's a fantastic musical. And we've put together a little video of some of the production shots with some of the music. But unfortunately, he sent us the worst possible copy of it, so the music is not the best quality. And why was that, Iain?
Well, it was just a recording that was taken through the sound desk at the time. So
Yes,
it's not,
well, he only met us yesterday, so he doesn't know our quality at the moment, you know. But we decided to turn it into a video and let you just get a little soupçon of what the musical's all about. So once it's been reprised, make sure you go and see it. So if you'd like to introduce it and tell us a little about the song we're going to hear.
Sure, this is the title song of the show called Whisky Galore from Whisky Galore, a musical.
Just pass them up, Rod! Stand by for Oh, that's just great. Highland gold, Iceland heart, tartan milk and bluebell, Northern Lights, present hands, Queen of the Glens as well. Chief's choice, Prince's choice, like breath and bonny Doon. Salmon's meat, Island dew, old Stuart is just as good. So drink to your heart's content, get good and one more. Three more Island lads, waiting by the shore. A toast to your health, Sanjava, Sanjava. Raise a glass to him above, who sent us Whisky Galore. Every single bottle of its own distinctive cast, flagon-shaped or oblong, miniature or vast, stamped with a notice, drink in the USA, and not for natives of this land where liquid gold is made. So drink to your heart's content, your good and one for more. Three more than Island lass, waiting by the shore. A toast to your health, Sanjava, Sanjava. Raise a glass to him above, who sent us to see Galore. The salvage will be here any time now, so we're just making their job easier.
Well, I've never worked so hard, but enjoyed myself so much.
Right, we'd better get this lot back on dry land and hidden away before the dawn breaks.
You better get out of your night clothes, Duncan.
You just don't realise how drunk I'm not.
We can hide some at the bar.
Some in my barn and the rest under my bed. I think I'll try this one again to make sure I don't like it. Highland gold, Highland heart, tartan milk and Queen of the Glens, Highland drawn, Highland hot, tartan milk and Highland Glens, Highland drawn, Highland sand, all the joy and Harlequin, all the silver, all the sand, all the joy and Harlequin, the Mackay and victory on, corn, golden beans, all drink to your heart's content, and good and one for more. Three more and Highland lads, waiting by the shore, a toast to your health, Sanjava, Sanjava. Raise a glass to him above, who sent us to see Galore. Drink to your heart's content, and good and one for more. Three more and Island lads, waiting by the shore. A toast to your health, Sanjava, Sanjava.
Raise a glass to him above.
Send on Whisky Galore.
Solicitors. Now that's a word that can sound scary. So I thought I'd have a chat with a very non-scary solicitor, and I'm delighted to welcome to the show Alison McKean, a partner in Perth firm McCash and Hunter. Welcome to the show, Alison. It's lovely to have you with us.
That's very kind of you, Vivian.
Now, it's true, solicitors, they can be a bit scary.
Well, I don't know how anybody could possibly think such a thing. unfortunately, the public perception of us is that we're not quite human, but I can assure you that is definitely not the case.
That's true.
We're really lovely underneath. To quote a very dreadful joke, which is very well known, it's very corny, old solicitors never die, they just lose their appeal. Boom, boom. Sorry about that.
Now, today we want to talk about the importance of making a will. Now, sometimes that can be scary for people and they put it off.
Yes.
Why is it so important that people make a will, Alison?
Well, again, that's something I could talk about for quite some time, but I will restrict my comments to two main points.
Right.
Really, it's important for people to understand that by making a will, as the name suggests, you're expressing formally your wishes, indeed your instructions, as to what is to happen to your estate, in other words, your assets, whether large or modest, after you have died.
Right.
And it's really important, in my opinion, that people do seek appropriate professional advice when they wish to make a will. The other side of the coin, and this is something which folks don't always think through, by making a will, you are actually showing consideration for your loved ones.
That's
because,
a good point.
yeah, well, I feel it is, and it's a point which is often missed, because obviously at a time of bereavement, there's great distress, there is anxiety, people have got a lot to think about, a lot to contend with, and if there is no will, unfortunately, that often adds to the stress of the situation. People are relieved to find that mum or dad or their husband or wife or brother or sister have actually taken the time and trouble during their lifetime to have a formal will validly prepared.
Yeah. Now, what is the benefit of coming to a solicitor and not getting a DIY will off the shelf?
Well, one of the principal things is the advice element. If people decide to make their own will, and of course that is their privilege if they decide to try and do it that way, some people write their own will, or they choose to buy a quite inexpensive will pack from one of the high street stationers. It won't surprise you to learn that I'm not really a fan of that idea, not because of the fee situation, not at all. Genuinely, I feel it's very important that people come to their solicitor, that they get advice, and that they think through what it is that they want to do in their will, that they identify their objectives and have that all validly set down. There are many problems if people don't actually get it right. For example, sometimes they don't sign the will correctly, sometimes they forget to get a witness, sometimes they forget to appoint an executor. But perhaps even more seriously, some of these things can be overcome with additional paperwork and evidence.
Yeah.
But even more seriously, if their wishes are ambiguous, if they don't write it down clearly, the person might know what they mean, but they have to have it in such a way that everyone knows exactly what they mean after they have died.
Because they're not there to explain it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, obviously. And also, sometimes people don't think through the situation where they may say, I wish to leave all my worldly wealth to my dear husband, John. But they don't, it stops there. They don't actually think, well, actually, if John has died before me, what do I want to happen then? So there really should be a plan A, if you like, a plan B, and even sometimes a plan C, where people are a bit younger or they have younger children, they're all travelling together. Not a happy thought, but if everybody's taken together, there's no husband or wife, there's no children, so who do you want to inherit in that situation?
Yeah.
If you have a business, that becomes more complicated, and very specialist advice really is required.
I can see that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So sometimes off the shelf is not always best.
I would not recommend it, if I'm honest.
Now, you said there about problems can arise. Can you give us an example of some, a problem that has arisen?
Somebody dying without having made a will.
Yes.
Well, there sadly can be many problems. Sometimes, if the family situation is straightforward and the person's assets are fairly modest, there isn't a huge problem. But if somebody has died without making a will, it's known as intestacy. So you've died intestate, and the law of Scotland regulates. There are rules which stipulate who actually is to inherit, who must inherit in that situation. And the result is not necessarily always what the deceased person would have wanted, to be honest.
Right.
In addition to that, there can be rather unexpected results. For example, what comes to mind is that recently we had an elderly gentleman client and he wanted to make a will. We went along to his house and spent some time discussing with him options. He couldn't quite make up his mind. He didn't give us instructions. We went back again. The same thing happened. He said, I'm afraid I need a little bit longer to decide. Now, he could have left his assets. It doesn't have to be to one person. It can be to a number of people in different percentages or divisions. It might be to charity or different organisations close to a person's heart. But it ended up very sadly, and I'm sure you know what I'm going to say, he died shortly after our second visit.
So he never got the chance to make a will?
Well, he decided not to. He didn't give us instructions. What actually happened in that case was that we had to appoint a firm of genealogists, which are title researchers.
Yeah.
That's their job. This gentleman was a single person who had never had any children, and it ended up there was a considerable delay before the genealogists were able to trace who it was understood were the beneficiaries. There were over 100 beneficiaries.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, most of whom the deceased would never have didn't know. So all of these people had to receive a percentage of that gentleman's estate. That cost a lot more money and quite a delay, as you can imagine, in getting things underway.
I can understand that. Now, you said it was an elderly person.
Yes,
what
it was.
About if it's a younger person, say young, single, do they need a will?
In my opinion, really everyone over, well, in their 20s or over should certainly consider whether they should make a will. I would strongly recommend that. Now, if it's a younger person, say they're in their 20s, as you say, if they have managed to buy a flat, even if they have a mortgage, they might have been fortunate enough to save a little bit of money from their job. In my view, yes, you should make a will. If very tragically that person has died, if their mum and dad are still alive and say they've got brothers and sisters, the law of intestate succession would say, well, the mum and dad receive 50% of that child's assets, and the brothers and sisters would receive the other 50% equally between them. You might feel, well, that's an okay result, that's not an unfair result, but in different circumstances it might be much more remote relatives who become entitled. So I really would strongly recommend that everyone who has any assets at all consult their solicitor and put a will in place.
Now, it's not uncommon, Alison, that people cohabit, younger people.
Yes.
So how does that work?
Well, that is something which is a very good question, and in fact the Family Law Scotland Act 2006 fairly recently stated that if a person is in a permanent relationship of cohabitation, that is not specifically defined. But, you know, mostly it's quite obvious if that's the case. Then the cohabitee has 6 months after the person has died to make a claim, and the sheriff in the court has then to adjudicate on whether the cohabitee should in fact receive a percentage of the deceased young person, usually his estate, and of course that can prejudice the other family members. So the results are not always what a person might expect. So there are a lot of rules and regulations involved, and people assume certain things, and sadly their assumptions are not always correct.
So it's certainly not as straightforward as we think, and it can be even quite complicated.
It can be very complicated depending on the family dynamics.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for your advice. And we would always recommend that you consult with a reputable solicitor and get good advice.
Wow, doesn't that chocolate look fantastic? Julie, it was great to see Iain there as well, because, you know, he's a busy guy, he's creative, he's producing the chocolates. Tell us a little bit about him. I mean, what kind of person is he?
He's a fantastic guy. He's very passionate, as we've already said, but he's a perfectionist. And to be working at this level and under, you know, kind of such strict conditions as he is, and the quality that he's got to produce, he has to be a perfectionist, and his team that he's surrounded by also are the same. I mean, he takes literally a long time to train his chocolatiers so that they're obviously at that standard. But he's a great guy, he's a family man, he's got the small child, his wife is an artist, so they're very together in what they do, and it really shows through, because he's a really nice man to work with.
Yeah, great. I mean, you've done so well as a business. What's 5 years you said
Yes,
you've been in existence for? You've done so well. You've been nominated for lots of awards. We made reference to them in the film there, and you've won a number of the awards. What's the highest accolade? I'm sure they're all quite different in their own way.
They are. I mean, it's kind of interesting. The 3 years that we've actually started entering the awards, we've won an award every single year.
Wow.
First one was kind of to the trade. It was Scotland Food and Drink, a food service award, so that was interesting. The second one was 3 gold stars in the Great Taste Awards, which is more of a consumer award. And then the third one was the 5 awards at the Academy. And then I suppose really the ultimate, meaning that it's all been worthwhile, was actually this one, which was the Gold Spoon. And this, again, was for Scotland Food and Drink. But this was for food tourism, and what that's done is that's made our destination venue, if you like, the Scottish Chocolate Centre, really worthwhile. We've only opened a year with that, and that's really proved to be very successful for the visitor.
And that's based up in Grantley, Highland, Perthshire, and that's Aberfeldy direction?
Yes, on the way to Aberfeldy, about 5 miles from Aberfeldy, and literally 5 minutes from the A9.
Fantastic. So as you move forward, what's next? Because obviously you've got the UK businesses, you've got potentially export. Is that on the agenda?
Yeah, no. This it's interesting. We supply to Scotland, and we also supply to several businesses in London. But we need to kind of meet that gap, if you like. We need to meet London and Scotland. But export is the next big thing for us. I mean, we're about to start in the Arab states and also with Japan.
Fantastic.
Big gift culture in both those places. So that's going to be very interesting. I also think as well with the kind of the unnerving situation with the UK market, I think export could actually take us through the next couple of years actually.
Fantastic. And online sales as well?
Yeah, online is good. We know it could be better. We need to perhaps invest a little bit more money in online. It's something that, you know, there's so much to do, and, you know, there's never enough hours in the day. But online is somewhere where we're going to invest probably starting next year.
Fantastic. So I've been looking at these boxes for about the past 5 minutes. Can you introduce the range to us? I see we've got 3 boxes here, so different sizes.
Yep, we do a number of different sizes, but the 3 magnetic lidded boxes are these. A 20 box here that you can see. There's a 30 box. Which is quite interesting, and then also there's this, which is a 48 box. Wow. And what's really interesting about this is all the different kind of patterns. These are actually done with cocoa butter and food colouring, and what you see there is some idea of giving you what the flavours are, but in fact we can do anything on these patterns. In fact, we put the Queen's crest on some of them, and things like Loch Lomond Golf Club, we put the stag's head on. So anything's possible, you know, anything can go on there. We just kind of need the artwork, and we need an idea of what you're going to want.
So I mean, they look absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. It's not what I would typically see as a chocolate to some extent.
No,
you know?
but they taste even better, Gavin.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Looks very, very good. And so those are for sale via a number of outlets within the UK.
Yes. We supply here in Scotland, Harvey Nichols in Edinburgh, and McEwan's here in Perth, the new food hall, but also obviously online. So yeah, I mean that's obviously going to expand as time goes on.
Well, these look absolutely fantastic, and I'm just desperately want to grab a few and munch away here. They really look, they're amazing.
Well, I'm sure that can be arranged.
They look great. Julie, listen, thank you very much for your time today. Lovely to see you.
It's a pleasure.
Many people want to adopt a healthier lifestyle and to even lose some weight. So I am delighted to welcome today Perthshire's leading personal trainer, in fact, master trainer, Stephen Clarke. Welcome, Stephen, to the show.
Thanks,
now,
Fabienne.
many people have been on loads of diets. They lose weight, they put it back on, try another diet, lose weight, put it back on. Where are we going wrong?
Well, Vivian, I think most people go wrong due to that word diet is a very negative word.
Yeah.
They start to restrict their calories, they even skip meals in order to lose weight, and it almost becomes an obsession. You know, I need to lose weight. And all it ends up doing is reducing your metabolism,
Right.
which is the exact opposite of what we want to do. We want to increase your metabolism. We need to burn more calories, and we really need to change the way we think about a diet as such.
So are you saying we need to eat more?
Exactly. More of the right foods at the right times.
Right, I quite like the sound of this diet. This is very, very good.
I thought you might say that.
How can we fire the metabolism up then?
Well, the metabolism's controlled by a few factors. Number one is the food that you eat. Okay, so every time you eat a piece of chicken, okay, it stimulates the body to, obviously your digestive system, your thyroid gland kind of kicks in, and your metabolism is boosted up for 1 to 2 hours after eating. So by eating on a more regular basis, we kind of fuel the engine, if you like, and we get the body burning more calories throughout the full day.
Right, so do you think that a lot of people that don't eat regularly, that's why they're not eating enough, because people lead busy lives, they maybe rush around all day just grabbing snacks and not really eating proper meals, and then coming at night, and let's face it, if it's not nailed down, you're scoffing it.
It's all about having a structure.
Right.
Most people, like you said, when people have got busy lifestyles, they're rushing around, food's not really a priority.
Yeah.
They have food because they have to have food. When they have food when they're hungry. And if you're going through your whole day not eating on a regular basis,
Yeah.
when you do come in, you're like, okay, I need food. And you go for the first thing that you find, usually in the fridge,
Yes.
and it's something unhealthy.
Yes, packet of crisps, chocolate bar, something
Yeah,
like that.
leftovers from yesterday.
Yes, that's true, the takeaway.
If you've got a structure to your diet, if you just have some basic principles, when you wake up in the morning you think, okay, well, I need X, Y and Z throughout the full day, so it's in your mind, it's already kind of in the thought process,
Yeah.
what should you be having for breakfast, your lunch and your dinner. And it helps. It's because people don't think enough about food.
So it's planning ahead, really, isn't it?
Exactly,
It's planning ahead.
exactly.
So let's break this down. Right, I know you're going to go on about breakfast because personal trainers always go on about breakfast, so why? Why breakfast?
Well,
why is it so important?
Breakfast is important because, well, the clue's in the name. It's breaking the fast.
Right, okay.
Okay, so if you have your evening meal, say 7 o'clock at night, okay, most people will have their evening meal, go to bed, and wake up in the morning, and maybe 7 o'clock in the morning.
That's a long time.
That's 12 hours
Yeah.
without food. So you've got to think, well, your body's going into almost starvation mode.
Right.
Your whole metabolism is shut down because it doesn't have food to work. It needs to kind of conserve energy.
So I don't suppose a sugary cereal and a black espresso is really recommended?
It's not ideal. It's not ideal. It's better than nothing,
Right.
but it's not ideal.
What would you recommend?
I would recommend a protein breakfast if possible. So having some poached eggs.
Okay.
Poached eggs with some spinach and tomato. There's a
Right.
little meal idea for
Right,
you.
okay.
Okay, and that's a really healthy breakfast. That will get your metabolism going right from.
Now, I haven't got
from
time to poach eggs in the morning, so what else? What else would be healthy?
What about a nice little bowl of porridge?
Right, okay.
I mean, porridge is great because you can add anything you want to
Yeah.
it to make it your own. You know, you can make your meal. You can bring out the inner chef in you. You
Yes.
know, my favourite is actually ground almonds,
Right.
with a little squeeze of honey because I'm a bit of a sweet tooth myself.
Okay.
So ground almonds, little squeeze of honey, and a nice bowl of porridge.
So you're having that at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Exactly.
Lunch, what would be a good lunch?
Well, when you're thinking about your diet, like I said, you have to have some sort of structure to your diet and give you something to think about.
Right.
Now, I would always recommend, if you're really trying to watch your figure, maybe even trying to lose some weight, like you
Yes.
said, I would recommend one carbohydrate meal per day. Carbohydrates are very, very important in your diet, but too much can be detrimental to weight loss.
Okay, so say you've had eggs for breakfast, what would be a good lunch?
If you have eggs for breakfast, then a carbohydrate lunch would be ideal. So you could have a baked potato with maybe some coronation chicken and a side salad with it. A great lunch.
You just said coronation chicken. Coronation chicken and lose weight. I mean, are you kidding?
Absolutely. Yeah, you're referring to the creamy substance.
So that's allowed?
Absolutely. I mean, if you can make your food interesting, then you're more likely to stick to it.
Right, okay, I can't believe this. So you're
Can you imagine a dry baked potato with some dry chicken and a dry salad?
it's not
You know,
very-
it's very boring, and nobody is going to stick to
that is true, and that's why a lot of people give up diets. don't they?
Absolutely.
So you've had your baked potato at lunchtime. Now, what about evening meal?
Well, because you've had your carbohydrates at lunchtime,
Yeah.
you want to be thinking, well, it's evening time, are you really going to be using that much energy after dinner? Most people don't.
No.
Most people will have the dinner and then sit around, maybe look after the kids or do a few household chores maybe, and then go to bed. You don't need carbohydrates, and that's where most people go wrong.
Right.
They pack the plate full of carbohydrates
Right.
in the evening, and then they go to bed and it all sits on the stomach.
Okay.
So you want to be thinking is, again, a protein dinner. Okay, your body goes through a lot throughout the day, and it needs some sort of protein in order to repair
So
itself.
we're talking chicken, fish,
Any type of meat
steak.
product, yeah, chicken, fish, pork, eggs. Again, you could have some sort of omelette. For vegetarians out there, any sort of dairy sources is good
Okay,
for
and
protein.
lots of vegetables, obviously.
Again, yep, you can pack your plate full of vegetables. Big nice salad would really kind of fill you up.
Okay, so you've got your 3 meals. Is that it?
Well,
Is that enough?
to increase your metabolism, like I said, every time you eat a food, your metabolism boosts up, you know, and that's what we want. We want to be burning calories. So if you can eat every 2 to 3 hours, then you're boosting your metabolism every 2 to 3 hours. Everyone wants that.
Yeah.
So having a healthy snack in between each meal.
So snacks as well. Now, snacks. You usually think bad, you know, crisps, chocolate biscuit.
Maybe not that type of snack.
What kind of snacks then? What would be good?
Well, most people complain that they don't have enough fruit and vegetables. It's too hard to have, you know, snack. An apple. How hard is an apple to
No,
eat?
that's true. It's not too hard. Or a banana.
Banana,
Right, so
any type of fruit.
You could have a morning snack. And what about in the afternoon?
Well, in the afternoon, again, a healthy diet is all about having a good balance of fats, carbohydrates and proteins.
Right.
Now, fats have got a very bad name due to magazines and people panicking, but it's an essential part of any diet. So, for a snack, why not have a little handful of dried fruit with nuts? And a mixture of nuts, you know, you get a lot of essential fats from the nuts.
Yeah.
Really, really healthy for you.
Good. So not the roasted cashews washed down by a large gin and tonic, but it's healthy nuts.
Some healthy nuts.
Okay.
Not the salted kind.
Okay, well that's really good. So eating all of this is allowed, all this food, and we're going to lose weight.
Absolutely. You need to constantly eat in order to lose weight. Like I said, most people go wrong by restricting themselves, and that's why diets have a very negative vibe to them. Because people associate, well, I'm going to go on this diet for 3 months and I'm going to lose all this weight. But the thought of doing it for 3 months, well, you know, after 3 months, what are you going to do? Are you going back to your normal way of eating
That's
and then
true.
put it all back on again?
That's true.
Forget diets. Let's think about a healthy way of eating.
Right. So by doing this, by following this, we'll lose weight. I mean, that's not the whole story.
Well, that's when the other thing comes in. There's 2 things that control your metabolism. 1 is the food that you eat, and 2 is your physical activity.
Right, I knew there was a catch.
So the more physically active you are, the higher metabolism is going to be.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's where a little bit of exercise comes
Now,
in.
that is often the dreaded word, exercise, isn't it? But that's another show, I think. But thank you for coming and talking to us about healthy eating. That was really interesting.
No problem at all.